Hi, my name is Claude. I'm an artist and graphic designer, and I'm working on a novel called Haunts of Lorne. In it, I have a character who has a prosthetic arm, but there's a catch. He also uses water-based magic. I knew that at some point I would have to develop a custom prosthetic design, so I decided to document my journey in hopes that it might help another artist. I have a serious disclaimer here, though. While I am disabled, I'm not an amputee, so I can't speak for what might be best in terms of representation. This is just my idea, and I'm hoping to gather feedback whenever I can. Without further ado, let me get into what I decided to do as far as designing his prosthetic arm. So I knew when I was started that I would have to try and look at other actual prosthetics in the real world just to determine how they worked. So this was a study I did of just a Google searched prosthetic arm. There's many results when I look. As far as this, I referenced from a Magic the Gathering character called Tezzeret, but the problem with this arm was that it looked far too sinister, and the character in question here, he's kind of, kind-hearted. He's one of the heroes, so I knew that wasn't going to work. So I decided to go more the fantasy route, but still kind of realistic-ish. And I found something from a video game, I believe, and it's the Shinobi prosthetic from the Sekiro Shadows Die Twice franchise. And I have a picture of it here. It looks like it's kind of spring-loaded. So I did a study of that, but ultimately I thought that that might be too complicated. So I thought the finger design was good, but I continued on. I believe this is another prosthetic design from the real world, I believe. Just a study. I did a couple of studies that you don't see here of other real world prosthetics. But of course, the story itself doesn't really take place in like a modern setting, so it would still have to be somewhat fantastical. I have a finger reference here, and this is the one where I started really thinking about what the fingers might look like. I also referenced a water gun, so that the water would have some place to come from, so that he would have like a tank, and have the mechanism kind of shoot out the water, but have it be controlled by him. So there's that part of it. And then lastly, I pulled a reference from, this was actually originally a firearm, and I am so sorry, I don't know where it came from, and I modified it heavily as well. But essentially the fire came out of the unit, and here's a concept sketch of what the arm would look like. So here's where I started to actually develop the concept. I knew that I'd have to draw the character around the prosthetic arm, so I started in with him and his face and torso. I only really go up to the torso because I don't really need to draw the legs in this instance, just not yet. So I drew in a ghost limb so that I knew that the prosthetic would fit where a flesh and blood arm would go. As you can see, I'm drawing in like kind of leather straps to keep in the hoses, make sure they don't go everywhere. And the hardest part was definitely the hand, making it look realistic but still kind of fantastical, because it's such a delicate part in real life. And I know that this is a struggle when looking at other prosthetic arms, again, because it's so delicate and you need to make all the fingers work with the brain. But as far as how to attach it, that was easier. I've seen a good example is Full Metal Alchemist, where Edward Elric, I think he actually has the same arm missing. So I kind of drew on that as well, just from memory. And here you can see I'm kind of fleshing out the details. At some point I do get to the side view, just to show like how long it'll actually be in regards to his torso. Goes down, of course, to his hip. And the pauldron, as you can see, it gets bigger if he's not using the water, because he can use the steel in relation to the water. It's like a liquid titanium kind of thing. Not steel. All right. But yeah, I did do like a liquid titanium, so he could control it along with the water. So as you can see, the thinner tube is kind of like the water tube, and then the bigger tube is for the liquid titanium. The thinner tube comes out the center of the hand, so it's kind of like he's shooting water from his palm. I figured that was the most likely solution. So here I'm starting in on the inking, and I'm doing line art on the face. I decided to go with kind of a thinner brush, just so that you could see the finer details of like his hair and of course the prosthetic arm, since that's the main goal here, is to see how that works along with him. But even so, I had a little bit of trouble with his face, which is kind of rough. But the thing that got me a little bit was all the arches that were a part of this drawing. As you can see up by the pauldron, there's a bit of an arch there, and I wanted to make that look realistic. Or not realistic, but believable. And a lot of time I spent on his hair, just because it's such delicate hair. And here I'm starting in on the hose. I wanted to make sure that it looked, kind of hose-like, obviously, and wasn't too lumpy or swoopy, I guess. I wanted to make sure that it held together believably. The smaller hose, for some reason, was a lot easier to make believable. And I do fix that other hand, the left hand there, because I know it's way too small. I don't remember when I fixed it, but it is later. So I know that hand is way too small right now, but I do end up fixing it at some point, the left hand that is. And you can't see the right hand yet, the right fingers, but there is going to be like a texture like with the liquid titanium that he's controlling. And the small tubes that you see, not the one on the palm, but the ones around it, they're where the liquid titanium kind of gets forced through. It's probably the toughest part for it to come through on the fingers. He can obviously, because he can control them, he can make them bigger or sharper, kind of like calling back to the Tezzeret reference, but he's not really going to go for like a harsher shape language unless he's really mad, obviously. So here's the leather work, and I drew that in a separate layer so that I could kind of make sure that it would fit, and that I could erase extra bits. That right there is the water tank. It could probably be a little bigger, but I mean, I can't imagine it would be fun to carry around a big old thing of water, so maybe he doesn't really need very much. Maybe he puts it back. I could see that happening. That's where the smaller tube comes from, is up the top of that water tank, going right out through the palm, as I mentioned. And then for the tubing, I see a lot of this in kind of like more robot mech things where there's a hose of some kind. I see a lot of like striping or striping on the tube. And here you can see I fixed the hand. I had to do a little bit of erasing, just the nature of the beast. So I think I'm finishing up line art here, and here I am checking the lines. I love the but the quick fill that Procreate has. It's very helpful. It has saved my butt a number of times. A lot of the colors came fairly obvious, like the leather and the liquid titanium, but I had to decide a little bit on the water tank what color it would be, since you know, it shouldn't be too clear. I have a bad habit of like coloring the flesh and then coming back for the eyes. So that's why I needed to drop the transparency, and then come back for the skin later. And then I also have been coming in hand with the multiply tool. So I'll draw like shadows or what have you in dark blue, like kind of a slate, and I'll come back and I'll do like either soft shading in some cases, or a lot of times cell shading, just because it's easier. I'll be honest, I'm pretty lazy when it comes to shading. It's not my favorite. But yeah, so I'm going through, probably the face is the toughest part for me, as well as the intricacies of the prosthetic and how that would cast a shadow against his chest and torso. Hair is also a little tough. I'm gonna be honest, shading is not my favorite, folks. But we make it happen. We make it work. It's just, you need to remember when you're doing shading, and this is much as me talking to myself as it is talking to you folks. You need to remember that there's a way, like things that stick out more would cast more of a shadow on the other parts. So, you know, his hair wouldn't cast as much of a shadow as like his torso would against his arm, if that makes sense. And hopefully with the shadows coming from the prosthetics, there's more of a sense of scale, and kind of presence for the prosthetic, and then the prosthetic's shadows on the actual prosthetic hopefully will give it some dimension, make it look more realistic as well. I'm not gonna lie, I was really happy with how this came out, even with all the struggles I had, and yeah, I mean, I had to come back and fix a lot. Like you see in the center of his palm, I had to go back and fill the flesh tone, and then I again changed the layers and fixed up that shadow for the big tube, the main tube, because that would probably be, along with the water tanker pauldron, that would probably be the part that would cast the biggest shadow. And I think we're almost done with the shading. Yeah, there's the multiply, and then I'm coming back with the kind of blush tone to fix his skin, his cheeks, his chest, his lips, and fingers and hand, the palm that is. And then I think I come in with shading for the hair too. Not shading, but like kind of a dimension, because he's not actually kind of blonde. He's more of a strawberry blonde, a redhead, if you will. So I come back in later with a darker orange, I believe. And I've got the highlights. Hair highlights are not my favorite. However, metallic highlights are pretty darn cool. I had an easier time with those, just because a lot of times they're like straight up and down. They're a little more straightforward than like a softer object would be, or a more curvy object. I have the light coming from the left, so I just had to kind of keep in mind where that would be, and then I gave him a little bit more blush, just because, you know, he'd probably be, I mean, you got blood flowing through the body, he's going to be a little red. And I think gingers tend to run a little red, don't they? And then, of course, there's a bunch of cleanup that has to happen with that, because I wasn't thinking, and I probably should have put the arm on a different layer. I think this is maybe 8 layers at most. I need to stop doing that. But yeah, I have such a hard time remembering that I can work in many, many layers. Just because I came from a background of like working traditionally, and of course you don't have layers with traditional art. I also gave him some freckles. I'm gonna be honest, I just think freckles are cute. and I kind of made them be a little less visible. Yep, there's the hair shading I was talking about, or not shading, but like kind of dimensionality. Um, it kind of gives them like a little bit of a gradient. I think it makes it look more real, as opposed to just kind of flat, like, looking, for lack of better terms, anime hair. I know I'm drawing in an anime style, but I like to think it's like semi-realistic. And I gave it all kind of a tone to make sure it would come together better and not look so damn bright. Down on the bottom you see kind of like what could happen if he got mad, and what his hand might look like. I imagine that if he had gotten mad like that, his hand would be kind of out of control. It'd probably break. He'd probably have to go get it repaired. And then I believe that's a close-up of the hand right there that I'm working on. And then I'm coming back with the shadow, fixing that up, making small edits, turning back on that overlay. I really like how this came out. And there's another example of how the fingers might look if he were a little more controlled but still angry. And that's the finished piece. I'm really happy with how it came out. Don't look for Haunts of Lorne yet, because it's not ready, but I am working on it. Rest assured. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week or month or whenever you're watching this. And make sure to visit my website. I have stuff on there like a blog and a shop and all that. And come back next time. I'll try to have more stuff ready. Thank you so much.